Hello, everybody. Corey here, and today we have another double toasted interview. And I am very, very privileged today. I'm very, very fortunate to speak with someone that I didn't think I would ever. I don't think I'd ever be in the same internet space as this person. As much less having an interview or a conversation with them. I'm talking about legendary animator Glen Keane. Good morning, Glen. How are you?
I'm doing good, Corey. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, same here. And I mean, look, I feel weird doing these kind of things because for most of our audience or anybody who's into animation, they know you already. Of course, Glenn is responsible for bringing us some of the most memorable characters in Disney and with some of their big masterpieces, especially during their second renaissance, which he became somewhat of an animation superstar. Ariel from The Little Mermaid, of course, we have Aladdin, and one of my favorite characters from one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Beauty and the Beast. Now we're here to talk about his new film that he co-directed, which is Over the Moon, which we will start talking about in a little bit. But again, Glenn, thank you for being here. Do you mind if I show people a little bit of Over the Moon, which is a gorgeous film, by the way? Amazing looking
Go ahead.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be on Netflix. We already reviewed it, but it'll be up on Netflix on the 23rd, October 23rd. And let's go ahead and take a look at it a little bit. As I said, this is a gorgeous film, which uses a lot of Chinese iconography and design and aesthetic.
Mama used to tell me stories of the moon goddess.
It's just a silly myth.
It's not a...
You know, this is, as I said, this is a gorgeous film, but this is, as I said, it has a big Chinese theme to it. You have a little girl who is very much infatuated with a goddess on the moon, Chang'e. How did you get involved with this film, with all the Chinese themes that are going on?
Well, I was giving a talk in 2017, the summer 2017, at the Annecy Animation Festival in France, and in that talk, it was called "Thinking Like a Child." I pretty much just described everything I loved about animation in that talk, and specifically about the characters that speak the most to me are ones that believe the impossible is possible. And in the audience was Melissa Cobb, who would become the head of Netflix animation, and Pei Lin Chow, who is the head of the Pearl Studios. And they had the script that had as the main character a character that embodied that idea of believing the impossible is possible in Fei Fei. In her intelligence and her faith, she was everything that they thought, that guy, he needs to direct this movie. And so they approached me, and I thought, my producer, Jenny Rim, and myself, we were thinking of doing something else at that point. But when this came along, I thought, no, this is what you're born to do. So let's say yes.
Very nice. As I said, this is a amazing looking film, and I believe. Well, how long ago was it that you started this?
It was not long after that, in 2017, in the fall, that we started meeting and talking about doing it. But we actually started with a research trip in the spring of 2018 to China to really know what the Chinese life was like. I mean, I only knew it from an American perspective. This film is really told from China back to the world. So it was having dinner with the Chinese, getting to meet the Chinese artists there at the Pearl Studio. And I mean, my team was really built with a huge Asian influence. All of our actors and singers, and they're all Asian. I had great guidance all the way through this film.
You know, I could talk about this film so much more with you, but since I have you for a limited time, you have such an extensive background. There's so many things I want to ask and get to. Of course, I want to talk about your career at Disney. And one of the things, and I want to bring up some things that a lot of people might not still realize, even though it's out there. One of the projects that you were working on before you left Disney Studios was Rapunzel. And that was a film that you were supposed to direct. And that eventually became, I'm going to show people a little bit of this, that eventually became the movie that most people know now as Tangled.
And that tower? Well, in that tower, there lived a girl who was just waiting for her life to begin. We really hit it off. How you doing?
You know, what I've always read up on your version, Rapunzel, is that this was going to be very much stylistically, at least, very much a different movie. You wanted this to be a moving painting, sort of like a moving Renaissance painting. I even have some concept art that I think you've done right here, which very much does resemble somewhat of a Renaissance art painting. Can you tell us more about that version of the film? What eventually happened with it?
Yeah, well, and that was an idea that I'd been working on for about 5 years, directing that film. But it came at a time where Disney management went through 3 different shifts in management. Every time it shifted, there was another change in what that film should be. It's one of the things about doing a movie in a big studio. So much is put on the shoulders of that animated film. So many interests that it often gets shifted and changes. And ultimately, I stepped off of directing that film. It was going to be a darker story. I think there was still about joy and transformation. All of that was in there, but it was, in a lot of ways, we were using a Rembrandt kind of a look, which had some deep shadows, and characters it was just a darker kind of a feel. And I think that was, there was a worry about what that film might, if you're going to represent Disney, it needed to be something brighter and more cheerful. And so anyway, I still believed in the version I was doing, but on the other hand, it felt better to focus on the animation. So I started working with Clay Cadis and John Cars and myself, and supervising the animation, which I am so thankful for, because that was, in a lot of ways, the training that I needed to go and do Over the Moon.
Really? Really? How so?
Well, what was wonderful is I knew that CG was something that I've always loved. I've always felt that technology forces me to draw better. The world becomes more real and dimensional. I think of animating as sculptural drawing. And alongside myself was John Cars and Clay Cadis, and I would do drawings and designs of the character, and they say, well, why'd you just do that line? I said, I don't know, it just looks better. No. Why exactly does that line make this look better? And it was one specific thing. It was an eyelash, and the way I'd throw the line. I said, well, it's like I'm throwing the look by drawing the eyelashes moving in the direction. And they said, John and Clay said, we can do that. We can create geometry to actually do that. And we should do that, because that has an impact. And we started to allow the intuitive nature of drawing to actually go into the geometry of the characters.
That was your last feature at Disney, I believe, right? I mean, you did some other things. You did I know you did character design for Paper Man, which caught a lot of attention, which again, that's another one where you kind of you're always pushing technology, trying new things, using CG to get a cell shaded 2D look. I know you did some stuff on. I think you went and did some assisting on Wreck-It Ralph at the time. Uh, so, being that was your last big feature, though, and you were leaving the studio, why did you think it was that time that you needed to resign?
Well, I remember Ed Catmull knew that I was getting restless, and he said, "Well, Glenn, what is it that you want? What are you looking for?" And I said, "Ed, I mean, I love it at Disney, and it's been a home for a long time, but I'm looking. I want to live creatively without walls."
Mm.
And he said, "Well, what does that mean?" Because I'm not exactly sure, but I know animators all around the world, and I know animators all around town in different studios, and studios tend to have big walls. But for me personally, I really want to be able to connect to the world of artists. I just really can see maybe there's another way of doing this, um, and I knew that in order for me to pursue that, I needed to be free from a constructed approach to animation within a big studio. So my wife said, "Well, I don't know, Glenn, if you weren't at Disney, where would you go? What would you do?" I said, "I don't know, Google." She said, "Well, Google, but they don't do animation." And, well, ultimately, I said, "But, yeah, but wouldn't it be wonderful to take animation places that they don't do that?" And so when I left, the first thing that happened, Google called, and then I did animation there, and then the Paris Ballet invited me there and brought animation to that, and then Kobe called, and these were gifts that I just could never imagine something like that happening.
You know, speaking of gifts that you can never imagine, this is a gift talking to you right now because I mean, look, you hear this all the time, but I didn't realize until like maybe I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that how long you had been at Disney. You were making movies. You were working on movies which were some of the first movies that I'd ever seen in a theater. I'm thinking about like The Rescuers, and I'm thinking of things like Pete's Dragon. I remember seeing that at the time. Now, saying that you've been at the studio that long, ever since the 70s, that means that you've seen some of the darker periods of the studio. Because you've been there. I don't know how long now. What would you say? How long it had been since the 70s? So how long had that been since you had been at Disney?
I left in 2012, so gosh, I don't know how long is
Like
that
about
now.
near 40 years, something like that. So that means that you've been there since the days when they had movies that were considered flops, something like The Black Cauldron.
A brave warrior.
I'll protect you.
A beautiful princess.
I'm Princess Alonwi.
An evil emperor.
Soon the Black Cauldron will be mine.
You were there for things, even when they weren't like considered to be flops, they were like considered to be mediocre things like Oliver and Company. At least by Disney standards, they were considered to be a little subpar. What was it like being an animator working at the studio at that time when the studio was going through this period?
It was well, you got to remember the artists never changed. The animators still were themselves.
Yeah.
With a desire to do something new, and there was always something percolating. Like at one point I had Tim Burton as my assistant, and Tim was doing sketches, and there was always crazy stuff going on that he was doing. Brad Bird was down the hallway, John Musker and Henry Selick. They were all there, and there was such hope and intense desire to do something. But waiting is really difficult. But it never stopped hoping. We always had this desire something was going to change. and at that point in a movie, when the character has that kind of desire, it always goes really dark.
Yeah.
And it got really dark when Disney was going to be sold. Animation would have been sold off, but instead, Michael Eisner and Roy Disney came in, but Michael didn't quite know what to do with the animation department. There was a possibility that would be the end of it. And we moved out of the animation building, the one that Walt built, and everybody carried their boxes with them. And we went into, I believe it was a coffin factory in Glendale. And that's where we were going to have to animate. But it was a lot like at 18 being booted out of the house, and you gotta survive on your own. And it was interesting at that time that Jeffrey Katzenberg came in, and he didn't know anything about animation either. But then, in a fascinating way, Don Bluth came out with American Tail. And that made more money than any animated film in history up to that point. And suddenly, Jeffrey was like, what? Wait a second. And Oliver and Company became a much more important thing. And he got big musical talent, and it made more money than American Tail. And then that was enough to kind of get this fire going. And Ron Clements presented this idea of doing a fairy tale again. It had not been done for 25 years. And Little Mermaid came, and music came back into the department. And that was a spark that everybody knew, you could feel it, that everything had changed. As Howard Ashman and Alan Menken were playing music in the hallway, you could hear doo, 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 doo. So art was affecting the music, and the music was affecting the art. And it really was the beginning of a new renaissance.
Good. So at that time, you talk about how you could hear the music coming from the hallway. You could, you're talking about how all these classic elements were coming back. Did you know at that time that Disney was about to hit this new golden age, this Renaissance period that you were talking about?
I didn't think of it like that. That was too big of an idea for me to think about. What I was focused on myself as an artist. I never really intended to be an animator. I just wanted to be a sculptor, a painter, and animation was to me the ultimate art form. And I was doing big characters, bigger than life villains, and I was supposed to do Ursula. And that was where the weight and power was. And then I heard Jodie Benson singing Part of Your World. And suddenly I realized there was more power, more light, more energy in a character that believed the impossible was possible. And I remember just going into Ron and John's office and saying, I don't want to do Ursula. I have to do Ariel. I know this girl. I feel like, that's so much of just my own point of view in life is expressed in that. And they said, well, can you draw a pretty girl? I said, well, yeah, I've been drawing my wife for 10 years. I know that. So they said, go ahead. And that really started a path for me of identifying with main characters that have this burning desire inside of them that's driving them. And that's what I wanted to animate.
Yeah, speaking of this some of the stuff that you were doing outside of the studio, and your desire to pursue animation outside the studio because you didn't want to be held down by anything. You talk about some of the projects that you took, and one of them that you mentioned was Dear Basketball. And a lot of people know this because, of course, of Kobe Bryant. This is Kobe Bryant's love letter to his career in basketball as he was about to retire. You were a director on this.
Dear Basketball.
Yeah,
you gave a 6-year-old boy.
That was an incredible day to have. Oh, are you wanted to play something?
You know what? I was showing a clip, but please go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead and show a clip.
No, you know what? Let me show some of this because it is I'm gonna mention this again later, but your draftsmanship is incredible. I love seeing the stuff, your animation when it looks like it's in sketch form.
6-year-old boy is Laker dream. And we both know, no matter what I do next, I'll always be that kid with the rolled-up socks, garbage can in the corner, 5 seconds on the clock.
You know, of course, as I said, you won an Oscar for this. This is back in, I believe, 2018 for best animated short, and you and Kobe were on stage accepting together because he wrote this. I have to ask though, because of Kobe Bryant, even then being such a controversial figure, and there was some controversy behind him getting on stage and accepting this award. Did you receive any criticism from people, or did you get any kind of blowback from people for working with Kobe Bryant on this?
No, I really got amazing support from people that love Kobe. I knew Kobe from watching him in basketball. I mean, knew his reputation, but I had no idea the extent of his touch on the world, particularly. And I started to really realize it more and more as I got to know him, but never more than after his death, that how incredible his touch on people's lives was. And what hit me about Kobe was, I thought it was his athletic ability. And after spending time with him, I realized, it's not that. That's not what made Kobe great. There was two things. One was this incredible intelligence, hunger to learn, study. He was, if he was standing, they were doing a free throw, and he's playing the Bulls, you'll see Kobe standing there next to Michael Jordan, asking him about how to do a certain shot. And Michael Jordan's explaining to his competitor how you make a certain shot. Kobe was never not learning. He cold called John Williams and wanted to know about composing music, but he wanted to know it so that he could somehow use that in planning a game strategy. Everything was going into that. There was that part of it, and then the other part of it was this same thing that I was just talking about, believing the impossible is possible. I mean, there could be 1.7 seconds left on the clock, and everybody knows Kobe's going to get the ball, and it doesn't matter, and he got to shoot a 3-pointer somehow within that time, and he does it, and they win the championship. That's crazy. When I was approaching Over the Moon, I realized Feifei is exactly like the character I just animated with Kobe. She's incredibly smart and believes the impossible is possible. They had this faith. It was such an incredible hit when he passed away. Our team gathered here at the studio and, in tears, and we all shared what he meant to us. And I had animated the final shot in Dear Basketball as Kobe walks out from the court through the tunnel, and he went into the shadows. And when I'd animated that, I thought, no, this isn't right. I got to redo it. And so I had him walking towards light, and then he just goes into the light. And I remember when I did that, I thought, I wonder if I hope he doesn't mind that it looks like I'm animating him going to heaven. And I thought, oh gosh, he didn't know that he was giving his final message in a lot of ways in that little film, in Dear Basketball, the letter he wrote. And Audrey Wells did know in writing Over the Moon, that message. And there's great power in that kind. It's not theoretical, it's real. Passing on something to future generations, to be able to move through difficult challenges and not let that stop you. It's just been a privilege to be able to work on this film and with Kobe.
Yeah, and that was such a fitting thing that people, for him. I mean, before his passing, of course, it was tragic and nobody knew it, but it must have been so incredible to know that you gave that to him before he left. It's an amazing short.
Yeah, I was often getting texts from Kobe. He was like instant, being able to respond right away, and we had hopes to do more together. And yeah, I don't know. I just count that as one of the greatest gifts given to me in my life, to be able to work with him.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to another animator, the creator of the Proud Family, and he was talking about how Kobe even had interest in opening an animation studio at one point as one of his ventures. Did he ever talk to you about that?
Oh yeah, yes. He was like, "What? Why are you doing Over the Moon? I want to do something with you now." I said, "Oh yeah, I have to do this." It's just like I felt like with Dear Basketball, I had to do that. But there'll come a point where we finish this movie as well. He said, "Okay, but make sure that you let me know when you got time again."
I know everybody brings this up, switching gears here real quick, but I know everybody brings this up with you, but I have to do this too, because again, it's very educational for people who still don't know this. But of course, your father is Bill Keane. Now, we have a very young audience, and it's gotten to the point now. There's a generation who they're not growing up with comic strips, especially waking up on Sunday for the color comics, which your dad's comics were a huge part of my Sundays. Getting up, your father's comic strip, of course, was The Family Circus. Your father, Bill Keane, you and your brother Chris were kind of the influences on the character of Billy in that comic. Being that you grew up around your father, of course, drawing. I mean, I'm going to assume that had very much an influence on your artistic choices in life. But where they split is that comic strips, that seems like such an area where the artist has total control most of the time, from writing it to drawing it out and then sending it off and moving on to the next one. Animation is a huge collaborative effort. So traditionally, there's a lot of people involved. What attracted you to something like animation over maybe doing something that like following your father and doing comic strips?
Well, it's my dad was an amazing artist. His watercolors and his drawing. Dad was truly an artist, but he had made this choice to really follow his path as an entertainer, and he really learned in World War II his art form, and every dinner with Dad, he would tell jokes to us. And of course, I was just like 7-year-old kid, and he'd tell some joke, and I'd say, "I don't get it." And he'd say, "I only tell him, I don't explain them." He was a funny guy. And he, at one point though, said, "Glenn, I'm a cartoonist. You're an artist." And I was just a little kid, and he gave me a book, Dynamic Anatomy by Bern Hogarth, in classical drawing and learning the muscles. And in a sense, he was knighting me. I'll never forget just that comment and how important that meant to me. There was a path that he could have gone and he didn't really get to pursue, but he was saying, "You go do that." I remember getting on the school bus when I was a kid, doing drawing from Dynamic Anatomy, and um, figurative drawings, and all my friends came around to look at my sketches, and they all started laughing and saying, "Keen's drawing naked guys." and when your friends are laughing at you at that age, you come to a fork in the road. Like, do I push that aside because my friends are more important and I'm not going to be the weird one? Or do you say, man, that makes me special? They don't do that. They don't get it. And my dad said that I'm an artist, and I like the fact that I can pursue this. And that's the path that I went because of his encouragement. So when I was 18, my dad drove me out to Cal Arts. It's a new school in 72 that we were going to drop my portfolio off to become an artist, real training. And the school was closed, so it was Easter break. We drove out from Arizona. And so we're driving around the school near the dorm, don't know what we're going to do. And I got my portfolio there, and there's this kind of stoner guy walking across. My dad says, rolls down the window, and he says, "Excuse me, young man." And I'm thinking, "Dad, what are you doing?" He said, look, the school is closed." And he said, "Yeah, man, the school's closed." Yes, it's closed. I know that. Here's my son's portfolio. Can you drop this off at the art school when it opens? And he gives the guy all my original artwork and everything in the portfolio. And the guy walks off, and we drove back home. And I mean, I would never do that to my kids, but like my dad, was not sophisticated in art schools. And so finally I get this letter from Cal Art saying that I was accepted into the School of Film Graphics. And I had no idea what film graphics meant in 72. I said, that idiot, he dropped it off at the wrong school. And when I got there to Cal Arts, though, it was animation. And I discovered that animation is the ultimate art form. I mean, it's painting and drawing and dance and design and color and acting and filmmaking and all of it together. And it will demand everything that you can put into it your entire artistic life. You will always, it's a humbling art form because you will never attain what you long to. And it will keep you young. Joe Grant, 96 years old, he was still coming into work, and he was always the youngest man in the room. He was head of story on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That's the path that I'm on.
I can see that. I mean, I've seen videos of you, and I've searched the internet for it, and I don't know, I can't find it, but videos of you jumping around the studio with a cape on, doing your Beast impressions and whatnot. I can definitely see that with you, man. And I think it's cool that at one point down the road, your medium and your father's medium kind of met. If I got it correct, you did the animation and design for the Family Circus. I'm gonna show a little clip right here. The Family Circus Christmas special.
Mommy, Jeffy licked a candy cane. I had to. It was dusty.
Is that something that now, did I get that correct? Did you actually work on that?
I did. I did some work on the helping the animators know how to draw the characters. I didn't do a lot of the animation or anything. It was very limited budget, but yeah, I was working with Dad on it.
I told you I was going to bring this up again. You are such a great draftsman. It's just it's a pleasure to just sit back and watch you sketch. I've seen so many videos where you've drawn, especially the Beast, which is one of my favorite characters right here. Yet you've embraced all kind of technology, and you've left quite a legacy at Disney. Anybody who keeps up with this knows about the deep canvas technology that you pioneered over there, where you allow 2D characters to move through 3D environments and also allow artists to paint on 3D environments. One of the things that I was really happy to find, and I didn't find it until I started looking up stuff to do the interview. I remember when I was a kid and I had the Disney Channel, and I was watching this special about CG animation, which if you look at today, it looks very primitive, but at the time it was cutting edge stuff. And there was a segment that came up for Where the Wild Things Are. This was something that was going to be directed by John Lasseter, and you were doing the animation on here, and I think you brought in the whole technique of the 3D background. And watching this, man, I remember seeing this and thinking, I can't wait to see what this is like when it's finished. And I never heard about it ever again. Whatever happened with that? Because that looked so incredible, and I was so excited for it.
Yeah, that was really the nexus of computer animation at that point. John and I had gone across the street at Disney, the Disney theater there, and they were working on Tron. And at that time, we were working on The Fox and the Hound, and there was the multiplane camera at Disney, but we weren't using it because it was too expensive. So there weren't multiplane. There wasn't moments where you could enter into dimension, but in Tron, every shot was moving in and out with these light cycles. And we came back to my office and was like, "There's got to be a way we can have that kind of dimension. Why can't we?" And so John and I started to work on this idea of what if we did a little film, and we love Where the Wild Things Are, but we'll do the backgrounds in CG because you couldn't do the characters yet in CG, but I could draw them like dimensional characters, and we could paint it as if, so it's like a proof of concept, and we would figure out how to do the characters. So we did that, presented it to Disney. But at that time, management of Disney felt like that was going to be too expensive. And why would we want to do that? So John left Disney and I remained. And so John followed that path. And, these paths keep coming back. You keep growing. And I'm glad I went on the path I went, and he went where he went. And it was very much an artistic discovery. And like I said, CG always forces you to think more dimensionally and to draw better. And that's the path that I've been on.
And you know what? You continue to go along that path, especially because you have a lot of artists. The big question for people who've had such a spent extensive time doing something like 2D animation. Everybody asks them, how do you feel about CG and 2D being pushed aside? But you seem to embrace new technologies. There is a video out there, and I'm just going to show this so you don't have to stop talking. But there's a video out there where you're sketching in virtual reality.
When I draw in virtual reality,
and you're very enthusiastic about it. Well, first of all, how is it drawn with that? I mean, I'm sure that's an experience not everybody has had yet. Is this something that you enjoy? Do you see this as something that is going to be implemented more in the future?
Well, I love the idea that I could draw in space. Like I was saying, that I think of my animation as sculptural drawing. When I'm animating the Beast or Ariel or any character that I'm doing, even with Feifei now, I'm constantly turning our characters in space to prove to you that they are not flat characters. These are dimensional. You can put your hands on them. You can feel them. And so in virtual reality, I'm drawing the way I feel in my head anyway. And it was just such an awesome experience to do that. The thing that I would love to see it move towards is that you are actually not doing one drawing, but animating characters in 3D space. That to me is the next step for that.
Yeah, you just answered my question. I was wondering where you thought the direction of animation was going. What direction do you think animation is going, and what place do you see traditional forms like 2D animation falling into that?
Well, I think the story itself uh, may lead you as to what you do in CG or hand drawn, or it depends on just your skill. You choose subject matter that allows you to express uh, what you're good at, how you can draw, and Over the Moon, I was given the choice. So do it in whatever way you want. You tell us. And I thought, well, hand drawn, that would be really cool. And I know there's a sequence I want to do hand drawn in that movie. Um, and I did this whole Changa, Legend of Changa. I did drawing that in a graphic style, an illustrative style.
Mm-hmm.
But I ultimately chose CG in that film because one of the great challenges was, how do you take this story of a girl that starts in this little town in China and goes to a fantasy world on the dark side of the moon? And I saw the album cover from Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, with the prism
Yeah.
and the white light going into rainbows. I thought that it's got to be like that. That's about light. The Earth is going to be like reflected light. On the moon, it's going to be source light. It's going to be glowing out from there. And Celine Desroumeaux, my production designer, is a genius in color and light, and it was perfect for her. So we went with CG just because it was the only way to tell that kind of story. But it was also the subtlety of the performance was going to be build a face that allows for you to see the thinking of Fei Fei, because it's going to be in her eyes. That's what's going to make you believe in this character. So designing her, building her, working with Sony Imageworks up in Vancouver, building Fei Fei was kind of like building a Lamborghini. I mean, you've got, there's so much in there. It's just like telling the animators, okay, take that car out of the garage and drive the heck out of it. Make it really sing, and that was the reason for wanting to go CG. So where is it going to go from here? I feel like the amazing experiment with Netflix is a studio that allows creators enormous freedom, and that it's a global studio. You can be anywhere in the world creating films. And I think animation is really going to be much more culturally expressive, people telling their stories from their culture back to the world. That's what Over the Moon is.
That's a very beautiful way of putting that. And you know what? And I would love to. It's such a good way to end things. But I do have one thing I have to ask you, because I think this is something that people don't know, and I think it's something that I don't even understand completely. But you have something called aphantasia. Is that how you say that?
Mm-hmm.
This is a mental condition, and it's. I'm going to read what because I had to write it down to really understand what it is. It is a mental condition characterized by an inability to voluntarily visualize mental imagery. So what exactly does that mean? I mean, it probably says it right there, but can you break it down even more?
Well, I didn't know there was a word for it. I just knew that early on, Eric Larson, as we were talking about animation in a room full of animators, and my mentor, Eric was one of Walt Disney's 9 old men. And he was saying, all right, now we need to visualize what we're about to animate before we draw it. And I said, I don't do that. He said, well, of course you do. I said, no, I don't see it in my head. He says, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. How do you draw it if you don't see it in your head? I said, I have no idea. But I know that I do not see a picture in my head. And I'd watched other animators draw like there was a picture in their head. And I knew that's not me. I said, it's something that I feel. and it's more in the drawing is a revealing of it. And that's all I can say. It's an experience that it's something that's hidden in there, and it's the drawing of it that helps it come out. And I never knew of anybody like that until I had dinner one evening with Ed Catmull, and he was telling me that he had been to a seminar, and somebody had said to the group, "Okay, now close your eyes and visualize a sphere." And this is a mathematician kind of a guy that could write all the math about a sphere, but he said, "I could not see a sphere." And he said, I realized that I was different than the other people in the room there. And I said, "Ed, I have the same thing." And that's when we realized we both had that. And I wouldn't trade that, though. I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I love coming at it from a heart place. To believe, it's important for me to believe. That's why I talk about the sincerity is so vital in animation. I can't draw it if I can't feel it. And it's just part of who I am. And I love that part of me.
Hey, you know what? I'm surprised I was able to fit in as much as I did. I had so much here, and I was afraid I wouldn't get to it. But thank you for just opening up and the stories and the discussion and just sharing, man. I really do appreciate that. As I said, this is an honor for me, and to get some of these things that I never thought I'd hear straight from you has been a complete pleasure. Thank you for the conversation.
Thanks, Corey. These were great questions, very thought-provoking for me.
Oh, that's great to hear. That makes me feel very good. And good luck with everything, and good luck with the Over the Moon. And I'm very much looking forward to what you're doing after that. I have to say what it is, but before we go, do you have your next project planned out?
Yeah, we've got a few. Actually, right now, November 10th, my son, Max Keane, he has an animation series coming out with Netflix that Glen Keane Productions did called Trash Truck, about his son Hank's obsession with Trash Truck when he was a little kid, and created a story where Hank and Trash Truck are best friends, and I do the voice of Trash Truck, and it's coming out November 10th.
Oh, can't wait to see that. Especially, have you ever done voices before?
Yeah, I'm just kind of a ham, constantly doing little voices here and there. You wouldn't know. They're scattered throughout movies I've done.
Well, again, thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, and this has been a joy. You have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And everyone, there we go. As I said, man, this is something that is doing these interviews, something that is great, because I never thought that I'd ever be talking to some of the people that I have looked up to practically my whole life, sometimes not even knowing it. Again, that has been Glen Keane, legendary animator, and his movie Over the Moon will be on Netflix October 23rd. And as he was talking about his future projects, I'm very much looking forward to them. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening and watching. And I'm going to get out of here because I might not be as busy as Mr. Glen Keane, but I'm a busy man too, and I got some other shows to prepare for. But even when I'm not doing a show, you know I'm going to tell you, you can still get a hold of me, kcoolmans@gmail.com. That's KCOOLMANZ@gmail.com. You email us with any kind of questions, comments, compliments, insults, input, and/or advice. Hit us up on the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Copy all the information right there. Use it, and we hope to hear from you. Also, we hope to hear from you when you're in Austin, Texas, but not right now because it's dirty out there. It's all corona infested. So I'll tell you what, stay where you are, and when the time is right, then we'd love to hear from you. Let us know your plans for Austin when you get here. kcoolmans@gmail.com. Let us know if you're moving here or simply passing through. All right, everybody, today has been great. And I'm looking forward to whoever I talk to again, but this is definitely one of the top right here. We'll see you on the next show. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening to or watching this. Goodbye, and stay toasty.